Well, let me do that before you start.
I'm gonna sit up here the whole time.
All right. Okay. It's a step forward.
Yeah.
And this thing went to the bathroom.
Professionals.
We are professionals. We'll get back in a second. So yeah, guys, we are in LA. We finally did the shit.
I wanted to talk about it. Instead of saying LA, they just call it La.
No, fuck no.
That's a hard pass. That's
Like,
like, I got beat on
Because
the
on my way up here, I was
got
thinking
shut
of
down.
actually an intro, and I was like, "Yo, what's up, y'all? We live from the La," and I was like, "La La Land." You know?
You let him say this. You let him.
This was a surprise. I didn't.
Yes, it is.
I
To
don't
everyone.
I don't like telling
To
people
everyone.
my genius just in case,
Oh.
you know. Yeah. I'm going up here like, La. It's like, you know, I think
That's been used.
if y'all don't want to have it, that's fine. I mean,
But like one law by
That's
itself.
a choice.
We don't have stand on the podcast for months. This is return.
it is always la la la. Okay.
This one too.
All right. I thought I could be, you know.
I veto that. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
vetoing on
Yeah,
that.
pretty hard.
We don't have this nigga on a podcast for months, and this is how he comes back.
Let's just be clear. It's one vote for yes, and the rest of y'all say no.
Yeah.
Yes. Fuck yes.
All right.
Let's be clear.
4-1. Yeah.
4
So-
to 1.
I will block the rest of
We're not gonna say well,
We're in Los Angeles. This is where we're at.
This is still the intro, by the way.
This is still the intro. No, this is all in there. It's all in there.
I feel like I brought.
People will turn immediately.
I'm bringing good stuff to the table. I had the Walter story.
You did have that.
I had the Lala.
You did have that line.
This nigga.
I'm a tourist, okay?
But yeah, we're all here. We spent a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of money. we are in LA.
Brought the rain.
We brought the rain with us. I like how we came out here for the women, weed, and weather and got none of those things.
Everyone's still my joke.
Yes.
Hey, honestly,
Hey yo.
I'll
grab you.
They have smoked weed many a times already today. One day.
Don't criminalize them on YouTube. You trying to get us fucking banned?
we're in LA. We're in La La
it's
Land.
super legal here.
Allegedly, they did that allegedly in GTA.
It's super legal here. It's not illegal.
Objection, Your Honor.
Not on YouTube. It's not.
Who cares about whatever?
Allegedly, they did it in GTA.
Which is funny because we're in LA, and if you play GTA, you like Los Santos. Like, I'm actually getting a real life understanding of that game now.
Oh, word. But you CJ now? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, well, CJ was in San Andreas. Yeah.
It's a Los Santos. Oh shit, that is true.
Yeah, Los Santos is number 5.
Oh, that's the 5th one. Okay, I'm tripping. Anyway, yeah. What the fuck we talking? Cliches, right? That's what we're doing.
Yes.
We can't just we got it.
No?
Is this the actual POI?
This is the video, bro.
Yeah,
We're just recording some shit.
Okay, we're just
Live
chatting.
from LA.
Yeah, this is live.
Live from LA.
This is the POI.
From the law.
From La La Land.
Yes.
We got.
Do not encourage the law.
No,
okay?
no one. It was you knew you were right here. It was vetoed by 4 people. You still saying it.
I just
Jesus.
feel like I should stay in my solidarity. It should just be the solo lie.
You and Bulbasaur together.
Yeah.
All right, guys. This is the Then Up Podcast. I'm your co-host, C Diesel. To the right of me, I have Professor E. King, the comic Ethan Murphy. To the very far right of me, I have Mr. Lelouch V. And to the not so far right of me, I have Mr. Elusive Zigzag. Elusive Knight. My bad. The Dark Knight is here with us.
It's elusive Zig. I'm thinking of honestly, okay, I'm not thinking about it. It is now said the new name is Milordo Z. All right. All right. That's me, Lordo Z. If you guys watch Zatch Bell, you know, Zophis, you know, Milordo Z. Come on now. Okay, that's
My Lord OZ. Okay. Yeah, guys, this is our first IRL meetup, so this is a big thing. I've been looking forward to this shit for like a year now since we talked about it, and we made it a reality. Wow, we still on my Lord OZ
We
stuff.
have to have a pace. We can't,
This nigga's bad at the Lord OZ.
Go back 2 steps. All right,
This is some fire content.
I was about to say, isn't that the pace?
This is the Then Up Podcast on a typical basis.
Also announce our other guests.
Oh yeah, we are. Yeah, she's trying to get. We have I off to the side, and she is gracious with her lovely presence. So thank you for coming on. Yeah, guys. Before we get into the actual topic, I just wanted to get into how amazed I am that the chemistry was just flawless as soon as we met up. Like literally, we didn't skip a beat. I've never met these Negroes before, and then they jumped in the car like we've seen each other a million times before, and we just.
About to say we spent so many internet hours together, and in each other's. I was gonna say in each other's presence, but I guess virtual presence.
Wait, first.
Then, you know.
Anytime you stand when you
You say this, hello, how are you?
anything you saw, anytime you get some
I
mic,
felt like
every time you get some
yes. No, honestly, I just felt like saying virtual presence just felt better than just saying virtual presence. But yeah, the fact that this mic isn't. I don't know. It's just a weird. It's a weird thing to me now because it's like I'm so used to having headphones.
This thing started out with Law Maloro Z, and now the mic's the issue. Jesus Christ. Yes. So cliches. Let's get into that.
All right.
Yes, this is bowling.
Jesus Christ.
But yes, you're right there. You're right.
Yes, cliches. So we're live POI. That's what we talk about. We'll get into some more content during the con tomorrow. This video will probably come out before that. I'll put that together. But yeah, cliches. So obviously, in I guess fiction in general, more so animation. Well, not even just animation, just storytelling in general. There are cliches. How do you guys feel about cliches in general? Is it obviously I feel like there are positive ones and things that are kind of overplayed as well. But how do you guys feel about them generally? We feel kind of right to left.
You're right, or am I right?
Am I right?
Okay. So
like I'm the furthest on the right, and then we can go back over to the left.
His as I said, I specifically Lord Z. I think that
That way, technically, I am the furthest on the right, and that way is left.
as I was saying, I think I have no idea. My brain pudding from Otis. I think that cliches and tropes can be a good thing. I do think that if you use them too much, it can become predictable, and it can become because we've seen them so many times before. Your work can seem very unoriginal and uninspired. So you got to tread lightly. The best thing you can do with a cliche or a trope is use it at the beginning of a cliche as a setup, and then subvert it essentially. If you, for example, you see you have a meet cute, the guy and girl meet. Oh my gosh, they're gonna fall in love. Right. Then the guy gets hit by a car and dies. It's like, oh, I didn't see that coming. So, yeah. I mean, yeah. Plus, it wasn't a meet cute. They knew each other they were dating already. But that's the same idea. The boys. But anyways, that kind of stuff. So that's my take is yeah. Like that.
Well, no, I'm just playing. I feel like when it comes to cliches, like Dev said, some of them are actually good ones. So, and I feel like some lessons just need to be hammered home over and over again. You need to just see that shit every year. You almost want to see, man, I want to see another so-and-so type of movie, man. Who's going to do it now? Like, you want to see that shit because you want to see the lesson redone in a different way. But when it gets to be like a cliche or a trope just to try to hide the fact that your story is shit, then I just can't get with that. I get annoyed of that, and it just turns me off to sometimes a genre entirely. So man, yeah, I was gonna say like fairy tale, like a 7 Deadly Sins. It's like these.
You're saying fantasy in anime, that genre?
Yeah, because it's like it's not even just that genre. It's like it's because I still love it. I still go to it, but it's
over sexualized.
Yes.
Fantasy. Yeah, it gets kind of worn out because I mean it's mass produced. Like they just put out so the same thing with like the isekais now. Like they're just mass producing them.
especially.
Like I mean, don't get me wrong. There's some that are exceptional within that stand out. But like when it comes to tropes, it's all about the execution. Like if you have a character that falls into a trope, if they are nothing but the trope, then you did that badly. If they have more nuance to that character, if they, if their motivations make sense even within that trope, it can work. But if you're just like a guy being a guy all the time, like, just a real man's man, all like, that gets boring. And if there is no development within that character, but if that character has a nice character arc within that trope, I can live with that. So yeah, it's like everything, it's all about the execution.
I would say that's the difference between a trope and a cliche. A trope is kind of like a guideline we've established that works well in the genre or in some form in use in storytelling. A cliche is something that you fall back on as a crutch that's been overdone and is too repetitive to be effective anymore.
I feel like it's kind of subjective, right? When it comes to certain things, I feel like some people have certain tropes that are effective and fun to some people, and then other people are just tired of it. So, for example, for me, one of the bigger ones that I really enjoy is the scene where you have XYZ character, and he's obviously like the biggest threat in the room, and you have these goons come in, and they're obviously trying to antagonize him. He's not trying to be violent, but they push him to that, and now he like murders them with ease. I love that because, again, it sets a tone. It obviously showcases a little bit of the character's ability, and it's just a classic thing, and you kind of have it throughout different time periods, different genres. But some people may dislike that and feel like it's overplayed because they do it a lot in different media.
See, that's the thing. It's like what Otis said, though. Like, if you have a character, it's like, say, okay, you had that moment. That moment's great. But you want to balance those moments. Like you said, the character didn't want to turn up. He didn't want to have to go there, but he was pushed to go there. If that character had, hey, man, get out of my way. No, man, I'm not moving. All right, power up, beat all their ass. I'm just like, dude. But it's the fact that you can kind of probably relate to the fact that, man, he tried to take the high ground, man. They forced him to have to go crazy. Like, you want to see some type of relatability and then growth with your main character if he's going to have those tropes. If he doesn't have that, it's like Superman. Superman's forever strong. It's like if we ever see Superman struggle for something, those would be those moments where we're just like, wow, like, dang, maybe I could be Superman. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Island of Kryptonite out the water. You're okay with that?
Yeah. Superman Returns is a real movie. Oh shit, that did happen.
It's one weekend, so just lifted it up.
Yeah. No, but I mean, so with tropes, there has to be a balance to it, right? Because I mean, you don't want to get too far away from tropes at the same time, because then your story becomes unfamiliar, unrelatable. It's just, you get so, yeah, like, with Cabinet of Curiosities, right? Like, it was some of the actions of the characters were so unorthodox that it makes it hard to tie that back to something that you can understand or something that you can relate to. So like, that's an example of getting too far away from tropes, but at the same time you can get too far into tropes where you're having all your characters do predictable actions and follow predictable motivations and just do predictable things. Like, it just, you can go to both extremes and you don't want to, essentially. What was that?
To piggyback off of that, this is Ethan speaking, by the way. There's one, what you want to do is if you understand the genre that you're working in. So, for example, I won't get into spoilers, Dev, I promise. Or Otis, when of you hasn't seen Knives Out yet? Have you seen Knives Out? Okay, I won't get into spoilers, but basically, Knives Out has a fun way of it establishes it's a murder mystery, then it dabbles into the idea of a heist movie, then it goes back into being a murder mystery, and it works well. It's like, it actually blends the genres, but also dips out of the genre and comes back to the genre well, because you actually, while it's in that particular window, you know what you're dealing with, essentially. I think another thing too is if you're able to essentially take what's come before in a trope and work with it even more, or kind of evolve it, essentially. So, for example, in anime and manga too, they have tournament arcs to pieces. Tournament arcs are always done, almost in every one. Say, for example, they have Hunter x Hunter, where they say, yeah, this is a tournament arc. However, the point isn't that our main character is going to win. It's more or less, can you survive long enough not to be the one that loses at the very end? It's like, wait a minute. So we're all winners except for one person as opposed to one winner. So it's the idea of, yeah, it's a tournament arc, but they have a different structure for it. It's just one example of that.
So, at what point do you look at a trope and think it's a cliche and it's played out? Because with something like tournament arcs, like you said before, they're in just about everything.
Yeah, again, with that, I mean, it comes down to the execution. Again, like you can go to a thing that's commonly used and do it well, and it still comes off well. But if you are doing it and you don't add any nuance to it, you don't add any of your own flavor that makes it original to you, then people are just going to call it, oh, this is the same thing that happened in another show, or because people make those connections all the time now. So I mean, it's not necessarily a timestamp or a specific marker that says this is an overplayed thing. It's just how it's played out when in the actual piece that it's from.
And I think that's the cool part about when you do decide, like, yeah, I'm gonna dabble into that trope. I'm gonna have a tournament arc in my story, but my tournament arc is gonna be the one people start to talk about. Or it's going to be the new standard. Like with the Yu Yu Hakusho tournament, then it was, oh, the Chunin exams, oh my gosh. And then Juju came along and it's like, yo, man, honestly, the Chunin exam arc, man, that shit ain't the best arc no more for tournaments, man. So it's like, you once you put your foot in there, it's like, oh, now you got to decide, like, okay, yeah, this is what I do. And then, like, that's when it's okay. But if you kind of use the trope to, like I said, disguise the lack of effort you're putting into your story, exactly. Then it's like, nah, nah.
Yeah, I completely agree with the bearded one. It should be that I know what I said. You're using the tropes to the tropes should be raising the bar for your work. You should be using it should help evolve the genre. So like if you're using again tournament arcs, your tournament arc should be that much more inspired and better because of all the ones that came before you. It shouldn't be lackluster compared to them. Another thing that happens too with when you have cliches, like say for example in the horror medium, obviously Dale has left in some horror. One of the biggest cliches of all time is the jump scare, and one of the worst ones, of course, is having a cat or an animal jump out real quick to kind of scare you. Yeah, the cheap jump scares. It's lazy, and fans of that genre, because they see it so much, they will turn on it essentially, and they'll turn on your movie pretty quickly and say you're a hack, you know what you're doing, stop that. One of the movies I think we all do agree on that actually being pretty good in the genre of horror was Sinister, largely because it doesn't have jump scares in the sense as far as like jump noise. Here it is. It's like he's gonna watch silent movies and disturbing images will happen on the screen, and that's it essentially. So it's being able to say, what is the cliche? Okay, I'm gonna go the other way then. I'm gonna deliberately go out of the way to not do that same thing.
So to get into this, we're in horror now. Let's stick with that for a second. And when it comes to the jump scares and the cliches, I think it's not a new thing. I'd say I think it's something that's been, I think since the slide, I think the Halloween movies did it to an extent where it's not a jump scare per se, but it's a kind of like an altered one where you'll have a character kind of do something in the background, obscure, where if you're looking at it and you're observing everything, you'll see that thing. Example being in Hereditary, if you look at the top corner of the frame, the mom's up in a corner like Spider-Man is chilling. And if you're not paying attention, you won't really notice it, but it's a jarring thing that you see, and it's a jarring image. And it didn't have the exact same effect as a jump scare because you're not getting that shot of adrenaline. But for me, it's providing that sense of dread in that moment.
I personally would argue that is a scare that makes you jump, but it's not a jump scare, quote unquote. It's the kind of the new age jump scare.
Yeah, honestly, for horror specifically, I appreciate moments like those when you can create a fearful moment without doing the traditional, music pause, camera zooms in, and then hop. Like, when you can earn scares without doing that, that's what gives a note for a horror thing for me. Like, if you can creep me out without just trying to just blatantly flash something in my face, that's something I'll appreciate. But when you're just constantly trying to jump scare me or like, have, if you make the maid, what is it?
Yeah, the nun.
The nun. If you make the nun, like, just don't ever watch. If you are a horror filmmaker, watch the nun to learn exactly what to never do ever.
See,
That was supposed to be really
for me, with that movie in particular, the issue I had with it, they didn't even have that many jump scares. To me, for that movie, it was more so all set up and nothing, no payoff. Because you'd have like the thing we just talked about as far as a character moving in the background or doing something, you'd have a lot of those in which the nun be walking around behind you, or she's overused and they use her imagery way too much. I think when she first appeared in the Conjuring movie, what made her scary is that you saw her images here and there, but she wasn't like up in your face the entire time. And they really use sound cues for me are another big thing as well when it comes to horror, where instead of an immediate jump scare, the director or whoever is in charge of that will build a sound that and make the audience associate that with either that monster or a moment, whether that be music or it be like a ticking or something. You have that connection with that sound cue. So then just hearing that thing will start to build that sense of fear and dread. And just subtle things like that you can do to build that off.
So to piggyback off of that, I agree with my brothers here. To build off of that, leitmotifs I do consider a trope, a good trope. Everything from Kratos is the way that the choir bells for his anytime he shows up in those games now, to Jaws, which is just a piano key as far as dun. It's just two keys. That's it for Jaws. That's how you can tell that shark's around there. I think those leitmotifs work really well. And then for Rocky, Creed, dun, 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 when you hear that, and it doesn't matter how many times you hear it, how many movies we talked about it before in the car, you still get hyped for it. It still works. So I think that leitmotifs are a cliche or a trope that's been around forever. With sound cues, that has worked. However, jump scares, as far as having, someone drag the chords of a violin real quick to kind of get your nerves up. That's like shame on you. So yeah.
But sure, do you have any other just like thoughts on this topic before we kind of close out on this one?
One last one trope / cliche that we all agree pretty much is essential, has worked forever, has been around since release Rocky, if not before, is the training montage. And even though you don't even have to really evolve it too much, it's just something that we all, for whatever reason, is just cathartic. So
you have it.
Instantly thought about that Rob Van Dam movie. And he's like learning to do the splits. Or Jean-Claude Van Damme. Instantly thought of RVD. Hey, shout out to Jeffrey. Shout out to Jeffrey and his wrestling podcast. But yeah, man.
Shout out to the pit now. He should have been here, but he had some stuff going on. That nigga would have been sitting on one of y'all laps. Yeah, stocky as hell. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning into this episode of the Then and Now podcast. This is going to be the beginning of a lot of RL content we're planning on recording while we're here. Kind of release that pieces at a time, kind of not burn it out quickly. But thank you guys for tuning in. And just hope we thank you for your support. We hope your continued support, and we will see you guys next time. Peace.